Hello everybody, James with Love My Pups, My Breeding Supply. Okay, so we're going to do yet another video on timing C-sections, all the signs you need to pay attention to, how you can avoid making the huge mistake that I see happen so many times. Literally every few days I get somebody who's called me up and they have got their timing wrong or they need help with it. And most of these problems occur because the vet has scheduled a C-section or the vet's not going to be around for the weekend, and so they take puppies early. You take puppies early, more than 2 days before you should have done, and you will end up losing puppies over this. So it's not just an occasional thing. This happens way too much. Why do you lose puppies? Because puppies are in the uterus, inside basically a sac, embryo sac, that is filled with embryonic fluid, and it's in their lungs, and they are getting oxygen through their umbilical cord, through the placenta from the mum, and they're not using their lungs at all. When they're born, they've got to transition from having their lungs full of placental fluid to getting that out and taking their first breath. And that is always a scary moment. It can take, up to 5-8 minutes before they take their first breath. It can be very worrisome. But after that, if you've got it right, their surfactant level in their lungs is sufficient that they can then continue on breathing successfully, and you have a happy, healthy litter. You take them early, more than 2 days, they don't have the right surfactant level in their lungs, and then puppies start dying, typically after about 48 hours. You think you're going good, but 48 hours to 4 days afterwards, you start losing puppies. And the sure sign that you've got it wrong is when you have a puppy or a litter that is born with what I call slick face. They have leathery looking faces. They don't have hair on their face. That is a sure sign that you got it wrong and you're going to run into problems. So we're going to talk about how you avoid this situation, and then we're going to have a little conversation afterwards about what you do if you've messed up. Okay, so we're going to go back to this graph that I keep on drawing, and this is days from AI. We'll do it days from heat, start of heat. And this level here is progesterone levels. And progesterone levels. Typically we measure this in America in nanograms per milliliter, in Europe in nanograms per mole. Different readings. This reading, to get to nanograms per mole, you multiply it by 3.18, so you get much higher readings when you're in Europe. So if your dog reads a 31 in nanograms per mole in Europe, that really is 10 nanograms per mole. All right, so what happens is the progesterone level slowly rises. After about day 5, it starts to increase. It goes up rapidly. It stays high whether the dog has been bred or not, and then it starts to drop. And then this point right here is where we're going to do this is natural whelp. This is when we should be doing our C-section. And the progesterone level at this point here will be something less than 3. Less than 3 is a safe point to take puppies. If you take puppies, so people are always calling me up and saying, oh, my dog's at a 6, when will I have puppies? Nobody knows. I had a dog the other day that went from a 16 to a 2.5 overnight. So we didn't take the puppies at a 16. The next day she was showing some signs that she was getting close to going into labor. We did another progesterone test. She was at 2.65. She dropped it. So the problem here is, if you've got a number above 3 and you call me up and say, oh, I've got a number of 6, when am I going to have puppies? I don't know. You don't know. The vet doesn't know. Nobody knows. All we know is you're not taking puppies today. That's all we know. So this is the critical part, that this point here, which we're going to call ovulation, it's a level of 5 on a progesterone level. This point here to when a dog would naturally start to whelp is approximately 63 days. It's not definitely 63 days, but it's approximately 63 days. The problem with all of this is, let's say that we're going to AI on a 15. So there's a 15, that's a 15, and we do an AI on a 15, and that, by the way, should be approximately 2 days later. So it'd be 61 days from that same place, from when we did an AI, if we did it at the right time. The problem is, if you get your AI wrong, what happens? It doesn't affect the day the C-section happens. C-section is 63 days from ovulation, and if you If you AI the dog late, then if you AI the dog out here, it just appears as though the puppies come early. The point here is that you can get this wrong. This is always in question. And so consequently, this 61 days is in question as well. This is where the problem comes. If you have a nice fat dog with lots of puppies on board, you probably got it right. And so probably 61 days from AI is probably the right date to have puppies. But look, you may have AI'd twice, 3, 4 times. Which one of those do you take? So therein lies the problem. Let's get rid of this. So the point I'm making here is don't get stuck on this just because we know when we AI'd her, that we now know categorically what day we're going to have puppies. And we can now just go ahead and schedule that date. From the day we did the AI, we roll forward 61 days, or if it's a surgical, by the way, if you do it a day later, it'd be 60 days. And then the vet says, oh, okay, come back in 61 days and we'll have a C-section. That is a recipe for potential disaster. Look, it's not coming off. I don't know what the deal is. Lots of times it works out okay, but 5-10% of the times it absolutely does not work out okay. And when this will not come off, and when that happens, you've got a really bad day ahead of you because you're going to have, days, because you're going to have puppies that fail to thrive. And, they then succumb to what we typically call fading puppy syndrome, is what a lot of people end up calling this. Though I suspect it's probably incorrect. C-section date would be a better way of describing it. This is not coming off. What is wrong with my board? All right, we'll just use a different colored pen. Maybe we can get over this. Okay, so we're going to talk about. So now we're going to talk about how you time a C-section. So the first thing is, if you're doing a vaginal AI, you take your first AI date and you count 61 days. And here's just a general rule of thumb. If you did the AI on the 15th of the month, and this pen's not working with it, Italy. Try a different pen. If you AI on the 15th of the month, then roll forward 2 months, it'll be the 15th of that month, 2 months later. So if you AI'd on March the 15th, you'd expect your first due date to be March, April, May the 15th. So just roll it forward to the same date 2 months later, and that gives you your approximate AI date. And that's all it is an approximate. That isn't a schedule it. And herein lies the problem. Let's say that falls on a Sunday, and the vet's not around on a Sunday. Well, what are you going to do? The answer is you probably always need to have a plan B. We don't like going to emergency hospitals for C-sections, or having emergency C-sections, because typically you get the most junior person. She's the person who has to do things at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody likes doing things early in the morning anyway. It's a lot more expensive. All good reasons to try and avoid this and get your timing right so you can know 24 hours ahead of time, so you don't have to have it done in the middle of the night. But you need to have a plan B, because every now and then you don't get it right. Puppies show up at 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you going to do? And the answer is plan B. And even if plan B is expensive, plan B is still a lot better than having puppies show up in the middle of the night and get a stuck puppy and start losing puppies and potentially even lose mama over this. Look, it's coming off now. Good. All right. So we're now going to talk about the things that will give us an idea that we're in the right place. So the first one is the first AI date. We want to see puppies that are going to be coming close to the first AI date. We don't want to be 5 days before our first AI date, because that sets warning bells off as to probably something's not right. Now look, you can have puppies that come early because a puppy died inside mum. And because of that, she can get forced into labor and bad things can happen. Nothing you can do about this, you just got to live with it. large litters tend to come maybe a day early. You have a litter of, 8, 9, 10 puppies in a Frenchie, there's quite likely going to be a day or two early with its own set of problems. But the point here is don't take the puppies until you're seeing these signs. And here we go. So the first one is start taking the dog's temperature. Every day, daily, at about 5 days out, start taking temperature. When I say take the temperature, we're just going to use, and I've got one here in my pocket, comes with our puppy care kit, by the way, and you can buy, obviously, you don't have to get a puppy care kit for this. Good old digital thermometer, you buy it at Walmart. This is like $5, $8 or something. And make sure when you take the temperature, you take this in their butt. You don't take it under the arm, don't take it in the mouth, you don't use an infrared gun on the head. None of those things work worth the crap. You've got to take this thing, lube it up, and you've got to stick it in their anus, and you've got to get it in that far. If you just get the tip in, you'll get a low reading, and you will interpret the results completely wrong. So you've got to get this thing in at least, 1.5 inches, that kind of distance. Get it in there and get the reading. Right, so what do you expect to see? Well, the readings will start to, a typical dog is something around 100.5. You're hearing that thermometer whistle, so just ignore that. There we go. So, a typical dog's temperature is around 100.5. And here's 100, and here's 99. So what do you expect to see the dog do? Well, typically, the day that the dog is going to have puppies, the temperature will drop below this line of 99. And so you'll see a dog's temperature and he'll kind of do some bouncing around, and then all of a sudden it goes down below. That point right there, below 99, is indicative of puppies within 24 hours. That doesn't always happen. The problem with this is it is possible for this to come back up, and you miss this, and then sometimes you just don't flat see it. So, but I'm going to make a statement here that probably 80% of the time, you see, maybe 90% of the time, you see this classic temperature drop. And as we start seeing the temperature drop, it's 99.5, 99.3, we'll start taking a temperature twice a day. Keep on track on this. And what we're looking for is a drop below 99. That means puppies within 24 hours. We're 24 hours away, and we need to start thinking about scheduling a C-section. I think we're 24 hours out. If you get a temperature below 99, take it again in 5 minutes and make sure that it's real. Make sure you haven't messed up. If you get 2-3 readings within 5-10 minutes and they're all below 99, almost always that means you're going to have puppies within 24 hours. And that's a really good sign that you're in the right place. Okay, so what's the next thing? The second thing that we see is a dog that will start losing its appetite as it gets closer towards the C-section time. And the 24-hour period from when she will have puppies, they stop eating. They refuse food. They stop eating. So how do you tell this? What you do is, as we start getting closer, every morning when you feed your dog, take a bowl, just put a few morsels of food in there. Don't fill it up, just a few morsels of food. See if she's interested. The great thing about this is you can come back 2 or 3 hours later and see if she's eaten those few morsels. If you give her a big bowl and she's took a few snacks off it, how would you know? But if you take a bowl with a few morsels in there, you can come back hours later, and if there's a few morsels still in there, she's not eating any food. Great. This also is a great sign that we're going to have puppies within 24 hours. And by the way, we don't want to give, if she's refusing food, take the food away at that point. We don't want her eating food when she's going to be intubated for a C-section, because she can vomit it back up and cause problems. So we just as soon, this is why when you have surgery done, they say don't eat at midnight, stop eating. Same thing applies to our dogs. We don't want them having a big meal before they go in to be intubated under anesthesia and have surgery. All right, so that's the second sign. Will you always see this? Most of the time, yes, but not always. Some dogs are chow hounds and they'll keep on eating. Third one is they start nesting. And typically you'll see this when they're about 12 hours out from going into natural labor, going into labor. So what do you do on this one? What we do is we put our dogs in a crate a few days beforehand. And by the way, go to My Breeder Supply. We have a patented by our system for whelping dogs that's based on basically a heat tape that goes around on our pig rail. Not going to discuss that in any great detail here. But the point is we put our dogs in the environment they're going to have puppies 24 to 48 hours before we expect to have the actual C-section, because we want them to be comfortable in that environment. We certainly don't want a dog that's used to sleeping on the bed with you, coming home and it's stuffed into a crate that it's not used to. That's not a good start for anything. So get the dog acclimated to being in a crate. Then put some newspaper down the bottom of the crate. Not because we're going to have the puppies born in the newspaper, but because it's an audio-visual help to find out what your dog has been doing. What the dog will do is it will start nesting. It will start, you let it out in the backyard, it starts digging holes. It doesn't normally dig holes, and all of a sudden the dog's digging holes. That's a sign that it's nesting. Your dog maybe rucks things up a little bit to make a little sleeping area, and then it stops. Now it's just getting after it. It's got a minute's worth of straight digging. If you've got newspaper in the crate, you can hear it. You can be in another room, you can be asleep, and you'll hear the dog tearing stuff up. It's nesting. And then you can go off to town, go do some chores, come back, and find this newspaper has been sliced and diced up. There's your visual cue. She may not be nesting right now, but she has been nesting. So this is the next thing, 12 hours. All right. Then the fourth thing is that she starts to do heavy panting, heavy and continuous panting, heavy panting. And this is something that she'll do, she may do some a few times normally, but all of a sudden she's going for a long stretch, just panting for a minute straight, just panting. Not normal behavior, certainly an indication that you are probably 6 hours out from the event. And by the way, this may also be associated with shivering too. So why is she shivering? Because her temperature's dropped. Her temperature's dropped down below 99. So shivering is a great sign. Panting and shivering, heavy panting and shivering tells me that I need to start heading to the vet. So those are the things that you can pay attention to at home. So this is for you to do. So watch for all this stuff. So the problem here is you don't necessarily see all of these things, but normally you do. And certainly if you get 3 of the 4, it's a very good sign you're in the right place. But if you are unsure, you do a progesterone test. So this probably requires that you go to the vet. And a progesterone level of less than 3 is the safe zone. Less than 3 is the safe zone. The vet can also do a vaginal check and see whether she's dilated, whether her cervix is opened up. That's also a good sign that you're in the right place. But I've had a dog that had a dilated cervix and it still wasn't ready, and we mistakenly took puppies and had some problems. So when do you get into? So let's talk about why this gets messed up and what happens. So small litter, singleton puppy. This is the one that catches you out a lot. You even may not realize the dog is pregnant. She starts to go into labor. You haven't done any of this stuff. So what you should have done is when you're 3 days out, you're not sure the dog's pregnant, you're 3 days out from the due date, go have an x-ray done, find out if there's a puppy in there. Make sure that you're not about to make a mistake, that there is in fact a puppy that needs to come out through C-section. But typically, small litters go long, big pregnant dogs go short. So those are the things to watch out for. All right, so it's the day of the C-section. Now what do you need? Well, of course, we recommend that you have one of our incubators. We've got 2 different sizes. They're portable. They'll plug into your car. They plug into household current. And for us, this makes a huge difference because we can go have a C-section done. We can travel hours away. The puppies come home in the incubator. Mum's sleeping anyway. She doesn't need to be with the babies for about 3 hours. And for us, this makes a huge difference in, first off, the coverage area that we have. Now, rather than just having our local vets, we have vets within a 100-mile radius that could potentially do C-sections for us. And there's a financial aspect to this as well. When we have a C-section done from an hour and a half away, our $1,200 C-section becomes $230. It's a big difference. So we save $1,000. But that's not the point for it. The point for it is to have the incubator is if you've got puppies, you can travel to and from the vet in an incubator where it's very, very safe. And if you have a weak, small, fragile puppy after birth, an incubator is an absolute lifesaver. If you're going to do very much of this, I highly recommend that you get one of our incubators. And this is also something too. Now I'm in my salesman mode, so you can shut the video off if you want. But the other thing is, the progesterone machine is also very beneficial. It's great for, number one, getting a big litter and getting your AI date correct. But it's also good for knowing when you can do a C-section and not make a mistake. And, you know, the progesterone machine is not cheap. I mean, the ones that we sell, the One Faux Fine Care is a great product. It's $2,795. But it's $9 a test. You get results in 15 minutes. And you just save a single puppy and you've paid for the machine. So, you know, I've had the machine now for about a year and a half. I'm an authorized dealer I'm actually the biggest authorized dealer in the southern part of the States for the product because we love the product. Okay, so what else here? So let's just talk a little bit about pre going into labor. You should have been giving your dog 5 milligrams of folic acid. You should be giving that daily from when she has her first AI until she has puppies. 5 milligrams. Normally when you see folic acid tablets, they're in micrograms, the mics. So you'll see 800 micrograms. That is 0.8 of a milligram. That's not going to get it for you. So you need 5 milligrams. Give 5 milligrams every day. And you can find that on Amazon. Then the next thing is we switch to a high protein puppy type diet as we are about a couple of weeks out, because we don't want a skinny dog going into labor. And typically the problem is they lose their appetite anyway. They've got lots of puppies in there. They don't have much room to eat. So we leave food there all the time, keep it fresh, go to a higher protein product. You know, think of it this way. When you've got babies, mum's got to make milk that makes babies. If she's not getting enough calories in, that milk can come from things like her bones. You can get a skinny dog, you can get milk eclampsia, you can get problems with the health of a dog. You want to have the dog in tip-top condition, and you don't want a skinny dog going into labor. It's a challenge sometimes to get dogs to eat. I mean, you know, you can only do so much, but I mean, there's some things like boiled chicken and rice you can give them. You can change the diet, maybe change things up. You can hand feed. All of these things can help a finicky eater keep her weight up. I think that this is pretty much got this covered. But this is so important, and I mean, I do see so many people who get into trouble. And look, when you go to your vet, have a conversation about this. I mean, you know, remember, you're the boss. You're the one. You need to educate yourself, because a lot of the vets are not educated exactly what you should be doing, specifically with C-section French Bulldogs. So I run into this problem quite a bit. Please do your due diligence and stick to your guns and make sure that you get this done correctly. And don't get forced in a situation where the vet says, oh, we're leaving for Aruba Saturday, we're going to have to do this Friday morning. Friday morning might be fine, but it might not be fine. And if it's not fine, don't get in a situation where you didn't do it the right day, Saturday or Sunday. Remember, your vet can go off and be drinking champagne in an aeroplane going to Aruba, and you can go to a different vet and go get it done the right time. Don't get forced into this thinking that you should be scheduling a C-section simply based off the day that you AI'd, because you will trip up. And if you do this enough, I promise you will make a bad mistake and you will regret it. There we go. That's it. Thanks for watching. My British Supply. We'd love you to subscribe to us. Bye, everybody.